Why don't we go ahead and get started? It's awesome to see everybody. This is a great room to be in. I'm really glad that we've got good attendance here today. And I'm hoping over the next 100 minutes, we'll have a good discussion and talk a lot about industry, ISMB and ISCB. And I think we have a number of great presentations that we're going to see. And if we have time, hopefully we'll be able to have a panel discussion where we can kind of kick off the discussions about ISCB and the Industry Advisory Council. So for those that don't know me, I'm Sean Mooney. I am at the National Institutes of Health in the US. I'm one of the institute directors. I'm also the associate director for IT, cyber infrastructure and cybersecurity. I've been in that role for about a year and a half. And but today I am not talking. If you wanted to hear about IT and the NIH, you should have listened to my talk yesterday. I am not here to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about all of the kinds of things that you're going to see. Even though I work for the government today, I do have a history in this area. I was the founder of a number of nonprofit organizations focused on biomedical entrepreneurship, and did that and decided at some point, maybe 20 years ago, to be a professor and follow the professor scientist path and kind of give up on the more entrepreneurial, bringing people together side of what I was doing. I do want a disclaimer. This talk is going to represent my personal view. It is not the view of the NIH or the U.S. federal government, and it doesn't represent any policy or strategic direction of the NIH. So keep that in mind as you hear things. Okay, so I'll do an intro into the ISCB panel. I'll talk a lot about today, and then I'll talk also about a survey that we did a year ago, and to talk, hopefully we'll seed the conversation for us. I think, I don't even need to introduce this, that, bioinformatics has a huge history of, big projects and partnerships between industry and academics and the government. We saw a keynote on the very first day from someone who won the Nobel Prize from Google, who really stood on the shoulders of academic giants through CASP and others that helped develop and solve the protein structure prediction problem. But that's only one example of many of how we've seen really, really big, large collaborative bioinformatics projects go there. And one of the things that I see a lot of from academics is interest in startups, starting companies. SBIR programs, for example, small business grants in the United States tend to be very good ways of getting non-dilutive startup funding that researchers leverage. We don't really hear a lot of conversations about that here, perhaps. Maybe you can correct me on that. But these are kind of opportunities of places that we might be able to directions that we might be able to go in. And similarly, venture funding is something that there's a lot of activity for in computational biology and bioinformatics. And again, we're lots of startups. You hear about some of them today in the presentations, and I'm looking forward to to do that. But there are also many other issues that are worth discussing. Public-private partnerships, you'll hear a presentation from the NIH on that, and academic technology transfer, how to do it. I find that fluency tends to be very low when talking to both folks that work in academic tech transfer and computational methods, but also from scientists who are interested in technology transfer, for example, getting patents or licensing data or databases. And then, of course, sponsored research services and research service agreements are something that, again, academics tend to have very low fluency, but is an opportunity in the bioinformatics space. ISCB has a chartered industry council. I am one of the co-chairs. There are others. This is just a snapshot of the membership from the website. A few of the members are here. If you're a member, can you raise your hand so people can see you? 1, 2, 3, 4, so several of you. Highly encourage you to attend the meetings if you can, and get involved. These hopefully will be good conversations. So last year we ran a survey to kind of get a sense of where the industry council was at, and what was the goals of members from industry that attend ISMB were trying to do. And so we sent a survey out that we developed as a council and collected it. We got 20 responses, which if you've ever done responsive surveys for conferences, to be honest with you, that's about usually what you get. And we found, and just kind of go at a high level through what we found. So first of all, we have a nice mix of pharma, biotech, healthcare, and IT. And we asked individuals what their job function was. I think one of the things that's kind of notable here, which I'll bring up in a second again, is that nobody from sales was here that represented. And usually those are kind of the first that jump in there. And I think actually that's kind of an interesting observation for this conference, because I think that's sort of unusual for big conferences. Usually you get a lot of sales and vendors that attend. And again, I think the theme that you'll see from a lot of this data is that a lot of our attendees from industry are scientists, are doing R&D and are participating in ISMB, presenting papers, posters, and actually doing science, as opposed to doing business development, networking, attending industry-specific events or things like that. We asked, what value do you get from being an ISCB member from industry? And not all of these titles are out there, but I think you can kind of see them. And the biggest click on this was keeping up with scientific advances. Again, sort of representing that people who attend this from industry are really interested in learning about the science that we do and keeping up with it. I will note that networking came up, and presenting your own scientific data came up with 60% of the respondees said presenting your own scientific data. We asked them, how could we support industry members better? Maybe also worth discussing. Here's some quotes from that. I'm not going to show you all the answers that were there, but here's some quotes. ISMB is very academic. I think that was a good message. I think providing better opportunities to meet and discuss science with academic researchers working on topics related to what we do, provide better opportunities to meet my non-academic peers. Something to think about. And then specific sessions like SIGs on the applications of computational biology to industry-focused problems. And so we asked also what types of programs or services would you find most valuable from ISMB. Again, they could select all that they wanted. And I thought, I think there was a definite interest in the responses for having, industry-specific sessions or industry-specific networking events and things like that. So also something to keep in mind for future events. So I just wanted to kind of, my own personal comments and just seeing this is I'm struck there's no more involvement from sales, because that's very unusual for a big conference like ISMB, in my opinion. You go to like, radiology conferences, AI conferences, things like that. You've got lots of vendors that are out there. And, I think that industry definitely sees this as an opportunity to present science or learn science. And there's definite openness to networking events and industry-specific content. Okay, so for today's session, I'm only going to talk for 10 minutes. So I'm going to get off the stage here very quickly. We have a number of really awesome speakers that are going to tell us about, all about different foci of industry and the interests of ISCB and ISMB. We will hear about startup ecosystems and translational science. We will hear 2 talks on public-private partnerships and career navigation. And we will hear 2 talks on funding and government innovation strategies. And then if we have time, we'll have an open Q&A and discussion. So again, I'm going to, kind of pose some key questions. What type of content could be useful for industry-specific audience at ISMB space? Are there better ways to expose ISCB attendees from, what is going on in industry and keeping up with the pulse of that can be very, very fast moving and can be very flashy in terms of things that are of interest? And are there ways that the ISCB Council can help facilitate that? So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker.